EdibleSpirit Hour. Oh, mine goddess. Here we go. Here we go. Happy Valentine's, everyone. Welcome to the EdibleSpirit Hour. This is a show that is here for you, dedicated to the edible and the spiritual, the delicious and the divine. And each week we feature a special guest healer. But today, for our Valentine's Day episode, we have two guests for you. But one could argue that they are two wholes of the same whole. You know, I was going to say two halves of the same whole, but you'll see there's no halves here. We're very excited to bring you and introduce you to Shophar and Kirti of Faux Show Energy Work. Very, very, very profound, ecstatic, energetic, that's a good word, ecstatic, energetic healers who work with your energy, your beloved's energy, the energy of the beloved. We just set some delicious intentions for this episode, so can't wait to see how it all unfolds. As you know, each week, the first thing we bring you is the F Me update. This week, we have some fun deliciousness to share with you by way of snacks. But first, we give you the astrological F Me update, which has mostly to do with Aquarius. But it's fine because it's good. We get to check in with you every week about this. So we'll just catch you up with where we're at. We are in a waxing moon. New moon was about a week ago. We're on our way towards the Virgo new moon at the end of the month, February 27th. Mercury is still retrograde in Aquarius until the 20th. So remembering that Mercury is the planet of the mind, deals with thought patterns, the way we think, how we think, the quality of our thoughts, the quality of our mind, transformation, changing, perspective, right? And so when Mercury is retrograde, all these things happen in our lives that are annoying. We've had a few things happen. We had a skunk break into the house. We had some plumbing issues. We had a really great time getting the stream together today. Email connections and adapters that weren't working. So all of these things happen. And that's what we usually focus on with Mercury retrograde. But it's always important to remember that these things happen to kind of jam the signal that we're used to in our minds so that the mind kind of doubles back on itself and flosses itself and cleans itself out. And it's just like the interruptions happen in order to interrupt a habitual mental pattern or habitual flow of mind substance, right? And it flips it back around so that you learn anew, right, and create new thought patterns through the dismantling of these thought patterns or the rearrangement or reflection of the thought patterns around whatever the topic of this Mercury retrograde is about for you. So this Mercury is retrograde in Aquarius with all the other planets that we're about to describe to you. The Sun is in Aquarius until February 18th. Mercury is in Aquarius until March 15th. Venus is in Aquarius until February 25th. Jupiter is in Aquarius until May 13th. And then again from July 28th until December 28th. Venus is in Aquarius until February 25th. Saturn entered Aquarius in December of 2020 and remains in Aquarius until March of 2023. Uranus and Mars are in Taurus. Who cares? Fire, right, added to the mix. But what is that? Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, all in Aquarius. Big effect of future thinking, innovation, connectivity, whether we want it or not, right? Problems of connectivity, opportunities of connectivity. Opportunities of connectivity that arise out of problems with connectivity. We've talked about this on the show before, that we have a theory that like one of the signs of the Aquarian age is people freaking out and maybe using some of that Uranian and Martian fire because the prospect of being so connected to their fellow humans is overwhelming and appalling and annoying. Well, get used to it. We got one mama. Her name's Earth. We love her. Okay. But we're all here together. So Aquarius at its best is sort of the elevation of that connectivity. And at its worst, it's the subjugation of that connectivity, or the detriment of that connectivity, which is in Aquarius about tribalism. Us versus them, me versus, not even really me versus you, us versus them. Me versus you is more Libra territory. Gemini is me versus myself, mental stuff. But Aquarius is an air sign, so it's a mental planet anyway. So, but it's about us versus them, me versus the world, or me versus we, self versus one versus many. And so, can you see how this is something we're dealing with right now? Like, what are the implications of my individual life in connection with all? What are the implications of our connection to each other? Are we going to look to the future and innovate and create wondrous new patterns of connectivity? Or are we going to like set up tribal camps and throw shit at each other? You know, it's like, I was like, probably some combination of both, but let's not even fuck with that. Let's hold space for the highest vibratory frequencies of the Aquarian age. We are no longer in the dawning of the age of Aquarius, my loves. We are in the meat of her. Okay. Mercury is the fastest moving planet, very intimate planet, right? And it kind of scans things, and it's been scanning things in one way. When it goes retrograde, it's looking at all of these things we were just talking about. So try to connect the dots between the things that are going wrong or appearing to go wrong, the connections that are missing, the things that are slowing you down, and notice what's there when you take that cue and you slow down and you change the way you're thinking and you look at something anew and you reorganize or rearrange or revisit or okay. Yes, and so that Mercury is retrograde until the 20th. So between now and the 20th is really the learning pattern continues, and it gets its worst around the 20th, and then whole bunch of business gets clearer after the 20th. And you know, if you just feel like we're constantly facing this like rock of a problem of what the fuck are we going to do about this Aquarian age? That's how we've been feeling. That's good. That means your thoughts are in the right place. Your mind is in the right place. Well, you put your mind wherever you want. This means that your mind is in alignment with these larger cosmic cycles, which is what all this bajangi is about, to align our yonis and lingams with the natural cycles of earth and time, so that we come from a place of presence and authenticity and service and self-expression. That's why we're here. What are you doing here? You're very welcome, whatever you're doing here. So that is our FME update, basically. We may have forgotten something, but we want to keep it spicy, keep it moving. So we're going to share some snacks with you. Okay, let's see. Snacks. Oh, P.S. If you want a reading a little bit later in the show, or if you have a question for Shophar and Kirti, please remember to join via the Zoom room. You can go to EdibleSpirit.com and just scroll down until you see the little slot about the Edible Spirit Hour, and there's a link there that will take you into the Zoom room, and then we'll call you in when it's time. I see some of you hanging there already. Love you so much. So glad you're around. Okay, snacks. We won't get too intense with this, but we're going to show you what we made. Okay, so first of all, camarones con salsa verde. We were trying to go for a shrimp with green sauce proposition, which sometimes has a little flour in it. It's like thickened with the roux. But the basis of this is actually very simple. A ton of herbs. Usually we just use parsley, but this time we use parsley and cilantro. Garlic, bunch of garlic. Let's see, salt, pepper, little white wine, olive oil. I think I might have thrown a pat of butter in there. Point is, it's basically just garlic, herbs, oil, salt, pepper. And then I pureed it all in like a blender, you know, or with an immersion blender, and until it was just like a chimichurri kind of sauce, and then cook that to heat it up a little bit, get it nice and bubbling, and then throw the shrimp in at the last minute and cook the shrimp off. Super easy breezy, not a big deal, lots of fun. But also, let's see. Oh, and we served it with Brussels sprouts. And this was a hack that we want to share. So Brussels sprouts, we do olive oil, onion, garlic in the bottom of a pan until it gets a tiny bit of color on it, but not too much, because they're going to stay on the bottom of the pan. Brussels sprouts are halved with the bottoms cut off. They go on top of them. Saute, 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 salt, pepper. Here's where it gets really fun. You either cover it and like steam it, but we added a little water so that it could kind of simmer and get nice and tender, because Brussels sprouts just get sweeter the more you cook them. Last minute, you add a big tablespoonful of almond butter. Peanut butter, not maybe. I would want this to be like more Asian flavors for me to want to put peanut butter in these Brussels sprouts. Also, just like, I don't have natural peanut butter right now. I just have some yummy Jif, but I had some really like scrapings from the bottom of a can of almond butter. Try this with other veggies, broccoli, carrots, like a thickener, an emulsifier at the very end of a dish. When there's liquid in it. It will dry it out a little bit, so you might have to add a little more liquid to it. These were leftover wontons that we had in the freezer that we drizzled with this yummy chili paste that we got from Thai store last time we were in New York City. Sweet and sour tofu and cabbage with red curry. And this was like a kind of quick chicken pot pie with leftover dough from the Singapore curry puffs that I made, or the Malaysian curry puffs that I made a couple weeks ago, that we turned into a puff pastry topping or a pie crust topping for a lovely little chicken pot pie. So there's something I wanted to tell you about this. This was really good. Oh, because I used the King Arthur gluten-free flour trick that I've been using. For some reason, it's like genetically engineered to get nice and crispy in the oven. And the sauce was made with tomato sauce, peppers, onions, fresh tomatoes, sugar, white vinegar, and I think that's it. Yeah, so it was sweet and sour, with crispy tofu. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And that's your FME update. Without further ado, we're just gonna dive right into the reason we're here tonight, which is to share in the love of these divine beings. Welcome to the show, Kirti and Shophar. Hello, angels. Welcome.
Hey, welcome. Peace.
Welcome to the Edible Spirit Hour. Thank you for being our guests today.
Yes.
Wow.
So we brought you on this show because we love to try to just really like make healing sexier. Because sometimes it can feel like a drag to do work on yourself or confront things. And how someone said it to me really sweetly the other day that in times of crisis, in times of crisis, I don't want to qualify the times that we're in, but in times of crisis, that people will, sorry, my heart's opening. It's nice to be in your presence again, you beloved ones. Sorry, my words just all went woo.
Right.
I remember this feeling. So here they come again. We love to bring people on that maybe people haven't encountered and that we can vouch for. And we personally have worked with you both and had truly just lasting, forget profound. It was profound, but enduring healing. Things that changed when we worked together stayed changed. And discoveries that were made in working together have not evaporated. Okay. But a lot of times people consuming healing arts or healing services will not necessarily have total clarity on what's going on because you trust the process and you go for it, right? So I really wanted to bring you guys on today to talk to you about your practice and your origin stories, and just to really check in with how are you healing. Specifically, let's start with how you're healing others. Tell us a little bit about your practice.
You go. I want you to start on this one.
You want me to start? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So first off, it's good to see you again too, man. Like the haircut and yeah.
That's good.
Remember when we saw you, it's like, so yeah, it's a nice look too though.
Thank you so much. They're equally authentic, equally true.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, we can't wear more than one hairstyle at a time, right? So we have to pick sometime, but they're all of us, right? So the work that we do, we call it SEX. So you talk about making healing work more sexy. So literally the healing work we work around is SEX, sensual, emotional exchange.
Mm.
Sensual emotional exchange. So the sensual being the physical body, the emotion goes without saying, and then the X though is the X factor. It's the exchange of that with the breath and the awareness.
Mm-hmm. And specifically, do you work specifically with couples, or do you also work with those currents and individuals on their own?
I'll let you answer that.
All of the above. I think whoever feels called to work with us is who we're willing to work with. And, traditionally how this work has been passed on has been actually very heterosexual as well. And so, Shophar and I are actually really committed to being truly tantric in this, is that it's all about an exchange of the feminine and masculine energies within us. And that has nothing to do with female and male. It's actually just characteristics that are within nature of a binary code that actually reveals the limitless possibilities that we have to be whatever the fuck we want to be. Mm-hmm. And that's our truest expression. So, we've learned to say that. It's interesting. At first it was like, oh, we work with couples. And then I started to get a whole bunch of women that worked with me, and then they started bringing their partners in, and it was like, oh, okay, I guess I work with women. And then women start to meet their loves, and then their loves come in with them. And so I think it just ebbs and flows, it's really whatever. We've definitely seen a theme and a pattern, right? We work with one, and then, like, for example, with you, we work with you, and then you shared it with your tribe, and then your tribe reached out to us, and then we see a whole theme and pattern of healing within a community that wants to take place.
That's very much a part of our ethos here, that that you do the work on yourself, and it ripples, and you cultivate service within yourself, and you don't have to think about growth. It just grows, it moves, it opens, but you both have such a just such a sensitivity to the moment, and to people, and to flows, and to energy. So I would love to know, did you study with anyone in particular, or who are some of your teachers, or who do you really look up to? How did you learn to be who you are and do what you do? I would love to know from both of you, because I'm sure there's, as with everything with you both.
Yes, this is like my favorite move, by the way. I love that you did this right now. That feels so good to me. I love it too. Feels so good. Anyways, you go, baby. Yeah, tell us about your first teachers here.
Well, yeah, so I love it because I was just recently on a call with 2 of the 3 masters that I learned from, which was pretty powerful to have both of them on one Zoom call just about a week ago. And he said something to somebody else who had asked him a question about learning from him. And he was like, well, first off, I don't teach you anything. I'm not, you don't learn from me. It's like, I'm helping you to remember. And I love that. It's like, and it was good for me to rehear it again too. It's like, so the people who helped me remember was 3 people in person, or that I met. One named Yao. I met him back in 2002. And we affectionately call him Master Yao, but Yao Morris, he helped me start learning about the tree of life, which is the different energies that are in the body, breath work, and then introduced me to the sensuality stuff. And then 2007, I met Nitiyama, and this is a very powerful being who, first time I saw him, he was doing the energy work on someone. And I just was like, what is this that's happening right now? Like, how is this possible? And then in 2013, I got a session with a master named Sasha Cobra. And the first 2 are masculine beings, men that helped me out. But the last one is a woman who, she actually gave me a bodily experience of the energy.
Wow. Wow. I love it. So profound. And yeah, just so I want to go down a direction of talking about the polarities a little bit more, but I would love to hear a little bit of who you've studied with or learned from, or who you've looked up to, Kirti.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, a lot of this work really extended from being an artist, first and foremost. I'm a creative. Yeah. And so I feel that, as artists, we are naturally tantric, and we are literally trying to find out how to exist in a world that is not so tantric. So where Shophar really accesses it from energy and breath work, and really deep ancient philosophy and connection. For me, it's been a very bodily experience from being a dancer. And so I grew up as a classical Indian dancer, and I would learn lots of stories, and we would perform a lot of the classical Indian dances telling a story. And as we did things with our bodies, I would just always feel like I got messages, and that there was something more and deeper to how we moved our bodies. And then as I got older, I started to see mathematical. What's the
Both.
word? Mathematic.
I think both mathematics, like relationships or mathematical relationships. I think both are true.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I just started to see like, oh wow, like the counts in music, and how the counts in music related to our foot patterns and dance, and just being in school, I was very brainy. Yeah, it just all started to come together. Yeah. And then in high school, my brother, he handed me a book by I can't actually remember the author, but it was Tao of Sexology. And it spoke to a lot of also Mantak Chia's work that we know about.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so I think for me, my brother was doing me a solid, because nobody schooled him in my family, and I think he was just like, probably didn't know how to have that talk with me. It was just like, here, read this book, like that'll help you, and I really took it to heart. And so I really got involved in that book. And before then, I had just, from being a dancer and being a creative person, I was always very intrigued by sensuality, sexuality. Growing up in Indian culture, Bollywood, which is very sensual, and it's it's just, my home culture was very much spiritual that way too. My mom always grew up doing yoga and meditation. So I grew up in that. However, Tantra, it was not discussed in my home.
Right.
Because it was still like the Hindu religion, which has lots of rules. And actually, in a lot of places in India, Tantra would be considered almost like a bad word, or it's like whore, prostitution, or just tribal savagery. Like there's
renegade rebellion too.
Yeah,
right?
it's just like, oh, they just like want to do drugs and have sex all day type of mentality. When really what is being tapped into is, what are all the levels of existence that we can explore to have our bodies speak to ourselves. And so I was actually a very just religious, devout Hindu until probably my mid-20s. Mid-20s, late 20s, I went to India to finish my studies in dance, and I had a pretty gnarly relationship at that point. And in India, as I studied there and visited temples, I just started to receive. Wow. I mean, you can't deny the message. I couldn't stop it at that point, and it was like, okay. And then on my trip home, I was like, I am meant to do something very different with my body. What I've been led to believe. And I need to explore this completely. And first and foremost, dance is my first lover and will always be my first lover that I need to like for life. Sure. I got very clear. And so after that, I just followed. I just kept following. And then when we met, it was really wonderful because Shophar, saw all of these qualities in me as we were dating, and, but I wasn't really using the term Tantra, and I was really reserved with it, especially with a lot of cultural appropriation, I feel, that happens around yoga and Indian culture. And
absolutely. We talk about it on the show all the time about what is appropriation versus honoring, and how do you tell the difference? The general consensus on the Edible Spirit Hour seems to be it's all in the asking and the sharing, and in citing your sources and telling people who your teachers are and what the practice is from. And it's like, if you're coming correct, then you're coming correct, and so much is so open source now too. There's so much available that I feel like it's much more important that we come up with ethical codes of appropriation so that it's not appropriation.
Ashe. Yes, that's it. That's definitely it.
I also just want to just connect a couple dots between what I hear you saying as well, which is like with there's some crossover between the Tree of Life stuff that Shophar was studying early on, the sacred geometries, and the physical forms of different dance postures, right? And first time I was actually talking to a great friend about it today. First time I ever did a breath work was in New York City with this amazing practitioner called Jyoti. And I had never experienced anything like this doing the breath work. I went into a very particular, like totally symmetrical lock. And it was the wildest thing I'd ever experienced because I wasn't doing it. I couldn't make it stop. And I was totally calm, just like watching the flow, just kind of running through the circuits of my body. It was just, I couldn't move, and I was just watching these things going. But my understanding of yoga, or of a really cool practice, which I don't know a ton about, but ecstatic, it's called ecstatic poses. It's about like making sacred poses with the body that aren't necessarily yoga poses that someone developed to put yourself into these physical mudras and then basically run various circuits of energy. So what I love and in understanding it this way is that we have a lot of artists on the show, Kirti, too. So you really brought that artist mind that was both holistic and all encompassing and understanding and merging with, but also the observation of what is actually going on here? Why, when I do it like this, do I have this kind of revelation versus something like this that gives me this kind of revelation?
Exactly.
So cool. So it's this connection between physical forms and energetic flows or like expressions. Is that fair to say?
Totally. And I've always been an artist and always have kind of been like I say an Indian in the closet, because I've always felt so weird coming out and speaking about spirituality as an Indian. I don't know, it always has just been really strange. So when I met Shophar, though, it was really beautiful because he really opened me up. One, we were dating and we're falling in love with one another, but our interaction and emotional exchange is just so profound that it was like it opened me up to start to own who I am and what I do. And it was like a healing of feminine energy within my toxic masculinity as Kirti, as this woman who's like been compartmentalizing and trying to like deal with my Indian culture and being an American and being spiritual, and then also like trying to make money in corporate America, and like it was just like all of this shit going on. And when we had finally met, it almost was like Shophar allowed me to see how to allow myself to just be like, I just want to wear one mask. This is what I do. Yep. And yes, I'd like to talk about sex. I do tantra work. I believe in sex magic. And like, I do think it's like, I have all this stuff to offer about love and relationships. And I've like been through fucking gnarly shit in my life for a reason. And like, it's time to take that poison and make it into passion. And we did that with each other. Yeah. And that was when we realized like, whoa, the potential of energy work and the sensual emotional exchange between partnership is profound, because you're like on a daily basis working it and reworking it and working it. Where sometimes if you go to a cuddle party, it's like, okay, you're like work, and then you come back to yourself. When you are in a relationship where you're two sovereign beings and you understand that, you get to really evolve your love, you know?
And I think so much pressure gets placed on sex, but I love the idea of sensual emotional exchange as being the acronym of sex too, because so much gets placed on sex that it's almost like people could not be having sex, but still doing all sorts of unconscious stuff in the emotional exchange, right? But I would imagine if you begin to have, consecrated, we won't say purified, but consecrated sexual exchanges, that it's going to kind of clarify the waters of your emotional exchange and also show you where the waters are still muddied and what needs to be further clarified.
Right.
Have you guys had any like like, what's quarantine been like? What has this COVID time been like for you? Is this increased the intensity of exchange?
Oh yeah, I think we navigated our fucking biggest breakdown within the first month of quarantine, of like the first month or two, because we had a friend who needed to stay, a place to stay, and we were like, oh, it's fine. You know, we didn't really think of what was coming down the line, and then all of a sudden it was like, just that navigating, all three of us in a living space, navigating co-living and each of our different things, it definitely brought out a lot. And then us coming back together from that, coming up with a really beautiful agreement in how we can honor each other's sovereignty. That's where we got really clear, like, oh, this is happening on the planet because we're supposed to realize we are sovereign in this relationship.
Yep.
And the more we are leeching onto each other, and the more we are like, our love can kill our love can possess one another, and we are actually attaching to one another, that like what's going on the planet's actually highlighting that. And so we actually need to do the equal and opposite and figure out how can we actually support each other being sovereign. So we came up with some really cool agreements to honor each other while we share space, and also, you know, maintain our sensual and sexual interest while we have a lot less to go out and enjoy and mingle with others. And so how to just do that. But I definitely want to hear what you have to say about that too.
Yeah, well, I think everything, you know, you just said, and then also the other thing is that it kind of strengthens, overall, it's kind of like it was a funneling through time, but what ended up happening is like we got more and more clear about who to invest our time with, you know? And so it was like, you know, with family and friends, you know, the circle got smaller, but it got more potent.
Wow, beautiful. So just to get a little bit too into your work, I would just say this, that, you know, when I experienced your work, it was really profound because I was working with both of you at the same time, and I felt specific currents kind of waking up and running and clearing and doing all these things. But if I can describe the way that it felt like your energies and your forces with me and around me allowed the almost like the bandwidth of my current to just get amplified and whoa, like oscillate, not like I'm just feeling it in like wow, 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 like really thick, luscious bandwidths. And then I felt it all kind of come back down. And I would just, I just feel like it's important that everybody who's watching or ever hears this knows that like that moment when you drop in and are aware and awake and present, that's what all of it's for. That's what all the healing's for. That's what all the readings are for. But even then, what we always try to talk about in Edible Spirit is even then you still got to make choices about how are you going to live? What are you going to do? What are the ways you're building community, or what are you choosing to participate in or not participate in? And I think it's important to just remember that, you know, we're all running a lot of programs that confuse our perspective, and that healing really helps to clear those things so that you can then own your shit and own your perspective and own your life and own your choices. And in that way, we always, you know, like to think of this as a light worker revolution, you know, so what you can do.
Oh, I love it. That is said really, really wonderfully.
So I want to see, let's see, how shall we do this? I may have more questions for you in a minute, but we have someone who's waiting for a reading. So let's bring someone in and see if they have a question or what they want to ask from us today. Let's bring in Kat. Greetings, Kat. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Edible Spirit Hour. Are you with us, my dear? Let's see. Kat. Is Kat with us? I don't think Kat is with us. Okay, well, let's send Kat back to the waiting room, and we'll see if Kat comes back. Wonderful. Well, here we are again. So let me ask you another question.
Come back, Kat, later.
Yeah,
yes, please come back, Kat.
This thing connecting audio, so I don't know if there was some Wi-Fi.
No, it was, let's see. Well, we'll see. Let's try to let her in again, and we'll just keep chatting and see if she comes through.
Okay.
So Oh yeah. So let me see. So that was what I was going to ask you. So I wanted to share what my own individual experience of working with you guys was like. Oh, here's Kat. Yay. Kat, are you coming back? Hey. Okay, cool.
Oh, yay.
Hi, sweetheart. You're muted, my love. You got to unmute yourself and then come back.
Okay, cool. Hi.
Hi, sweet beloved. Welcome, Kat.
Hi, sweetheart. You're muted, my love. You gotta unmute yourself.
And now you got to turn off the
Hi,
YouTube
sweet
page.
beloved. Welcome, Kat.
Don't worry, we're good to go.
Okay.
Hey, we got it. We're welcome. Hi.
I went to the bathroom and I was like, there's no way. And I hear, now we're going to go to the live readings. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. It happened.
It happened. It was in that one moment.
Cool.
Well, welcome. You're here. You're live with Edible Spirit and with Shophar and Kirti. Do you have a question, or do you have a question for us, or do you want a reading, or how can we work with you tonight? How can we serve?
I have a multitude of questions always, so maybe a general message or something,
What's interesting is I was going to wait, you guys, to ask you this question, but I'm feeling called to ask it while Kat is with us.
Okay.
What I wanted to explain how your work has affected me so that I could say, we had some beautiful words from you about your energy with each other and how you've navigated this time. But what is advice that you would give to individuals or maybe people that aren't in partnership right now or that are quarantined at home alone? What are some ways that people can work with their energy or work with divine masculine, divine feminine frequencies and flows within themselves? Anything that you could share? And then we'll see if this pings for you, Kat, and then I'll give you a card anyway. Okay? Okay.
Sounds good. Well, I think one thing that we have an acronym that we give people, and it's pretty easy to remember. So it's VIBE, VIBE. And this one is one that I use personally to come into my own as a healer. So the V is for voice, is to start expressing ourselves more vocally. That may be speaking our truth, speaking from our heart more. So that means in all situations that we're making sure in traditional Chinese medicine, the tongue and the heart are connected. And when there's not alignment with the tongue and the heart, it can cause disease. So the V is for voice or vocal. The I is for introspection, to introspect, to look inward. So in order to know what we need to speak on is sometimes we look inward, and usually we can come up, if we really take the time to really truly go deep within and introspect, we can come up with what needs to be spoken or what needs to be done. B is for breath. Yeah. So we always have the breath with us, or if we don't have the breath anymore, we won't be here. So the breath is always with us. So remembering to bring our awareness to the breath, though, that is where the power is. And then E is for embodiment or emotion or embodied emotions. It's one thing to say, Mikey, I appreciate you. It's another thing to feel the appreciation in the physical body. So that's 4 easy ways to up your vibration, your vibe.
How lovely. How did that sit with you, Kat? Did that slap?
Yes. I've become better at communicating and, speaking what's in my heart these days, stating my boundaries better and things like that. So yeah, there's still times where I'm still I don't know if it's a politeness or a shyness, yeah.
I pulled a card for you, which is called the Four of Cups, but in this deck, it's actually called Anger, which is the Four of Cups is beautiful that we're talking with Shophar and Kirti here too, because it's a card of water, and the Two of Cups is about romance and actually that sort of flow of energies between divine masculine, divine feminine. But the Four of Cups is when that flow becomes stable. And that can either be emotionally satisfying and I have everything I need, but it can also be the moment where you start getting itchy because you're content and everything's just all right. and everything's okay. But if you, so it's almost like you're well enough to, as Shophar and Kirti were saying, as Shophar was saying, express and let it out. So I think based on the card that I pulled for you, the way I would piggyback it on what Shophar was sharing is that you kind of got to do that introspection thing a little bit more to check if how you're acting and what you're saying is really in alignment with how you're feeling and what you're thinking.
Wow.
Right.
I want to know, like, I'm in my late 30s, so it's so crazy to still not know, but almost like the difference between spending a lot of time alone and introspection, because to me, every moment that I am with myself and working in my space, I'm like, this is all introspection. But if I still have more to go, then what can I do during my time alone to really make it that quality introspection time, as opposed to just like, solitude and stuff like that?
It's a great question. I have thoughts on it, but do either of you guys have anything to say about this?
I think that the embodied emotion is a really great tie-in there. So, even if you're, whatever work you do, whether you're a painter or if you are a designer of some sort, and feeling what you're doing as you're doing it, even if you're washing dishes, you might be washing dishes alone, but actually feeling the water and the depths of the water on your hands, the heat of the water, engaging the five senses in everything that you do is going to allow you to really start to introspect with the embodied emotion piece. And then that's when you'll start to realize that, this is, and it also ties in, Mikey, to what you were saying earlier about like, what are the things when you're alone? Like, these are how you can spend moments alone when you're not, having physical touch or physical interaction, but just know that, there's always interaction happening. It's all perspective. You can feel somebody from your cellular memory without them even being there. So you can do that.
But the important thing about being able to do that is, as you're saying, the embodied emotion. So it's one thing to be doing things on your own and thinking. It's another thing to bring all of that awareness deeply into your body so that it's a beautiful practice, this idea of doing it while you're doing the dishes, or you're an artist, so you know what this feels like, where you make every day new, and every time you walk into your space, you encounter it anew. You remember you have eyes, you remember you have fingers. I did trauma work with a practitioner the other day, and the first thing they had me do was feel everywhere that my skin touched my clothes. And then they had me feel the surface of my skin. And then they had me go to the layer below my skin. And it did this thing where I didn't realize how not in my body I was. And it woke up my entire, just the hairs on the back of my neck and my finger, just everything was awake and alive. And so I think, Kat, what Kirti's getting at here is like, if you're coming from that place, all sorts of interesting stuff is going to happen. And this was my 2 cents was introspection often feels like doing optional emotional work. You don't have to look into it. You don't have to look deeper into it. Scorpios love introspection because it's this way of like looking for problems or looking for imbalances or looking for treasures or looking for strengths, just that inner journeying that, may reveal a problem, but then at least you found the problem and you can work on the problem and your energy gets freer and you lighten up and you do more healing. So I think it's got that, it's not a pressure. It's not like you're looking for something that's wrong. It's just, I love what you guys are saying here, Shophar, Kirti, is that you're coming from within your space and then looking for, well, the way EdibleSpirit would say it is what's in ideal alignment and what's in less than ideal alignment. How happy do you feel once you're getting in your body? Do you feel trapped in your body? Do you feel joyful in your body? Do you want to roll around on the floor? It's like, but I love what you're saying, Kirti. It's so wise to just get in there first, experiment with being in there and exploring being in there, and then see if that changes the quality of, your kind of day-to-day patterning. Make sense?
Yeah. Well, a good sign and way of knowing that you're you're introspecting to a level of spiritual consciousness and awareness, or what I call creativity consciousness, is that you have no concept of time passing. It's a good sign. It's a good way of knowing that you're in deep introspection and flow.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kat. Anything else you want to share, or how you feeling? You feel okay?
Yeah, no, immediately what you were describing made me think of like interacting with my space. It made me think of like Pee-wee's Playhouse. I was like, yes, just turn the space into like a playhouse.
Totally. And always remember that when you do that in your space, you're low-key doing it in your body as well.
Yeah.
You're making yourself into a playhouse. So I think there's something here where it's like the more you let out, the more fun you're going to have too. What'd you say, Sho?
Connecting the dots. La, la, la.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kat. Thanks
Thank
for
you, so sweet.
We'll see you soon, okay?
Yeah.
Bye. Okay, wait, I'm gonna send you the waiting room. Bye. Okay. Fun.
Yeah.
I love that. So I wanted to just before, we're gonna wrap up in a few, but I wanted to just touch a little bit and just I remember you saying a little earlier, right? This idea of binary code. And we here at Edible Spirit like to consider ourselves to be post-binary as opposed to non-binary. We don't like identifying with not.
I
so
love it.
we fuck with post-binarism. And the reason why we like that is because, we've benefited from lots of privilege as assigned male, white, giant Greek, right? Greek Croatian, so I've benefited from a lot of privilege through the binary, but also a lot of struggle and a lot of suffering. And I've personally experienced the binary being useful because it is confining and reveals my limitations, but I love it as a teaching tool because I know that I am post-binary, but I've come to understand myself as such through exploration of the poles and the extremes of the poles. So that's my take on it. Can you both just share maybe, this would be fun, share a little bit of your experience of the binary as divine masculine, divine feminine? I remembered as you were talking earlier, when we first saw you, don't you both tend to say yin yang more than divine masculine, divine feminine? Ow, go off.
So yeah, I would say for the binary code, I love what you said, and I think I'll offer two things there, and I'll let Show freestyle off of that. Two things that were coming to me as you were speaking, where you said post-binary. You understand what it means to be post-binary because of the poles, and yes, you understand what it is to be post-binary because first you have to know what it is to be binary. So when we know the conditioning from which we are bred in, and we have the desire to break away from the conditioning, we have to be thankful to the conditioning. Okay, and this is what we talk about with art work that I do with artists and creativity consciousness, is like everybody says think outside the box, but nobody ever wants to honor the box.
Right. And if you don't honor the box comes to rule your fucking life.
Exactly.
Because you can't it makes it stick around longer. Or no, here's a better way of saying it. I think it reduces efficiency. It makes your existence very inefficient because it's like, it would be like a hermit crab bitching about its old shell once it's already moved into its new shell.
Totally.
That's funny. So what about, so talk to me a little bit about those qualities though, the yin yang flow.
So the yin yang, and I let you speak to yin yang, and I'll speak to Shiva Shakti. Well, the way I see it is the masculine and feminine are energies, and they might be these poles. However, it's much better to think of something as like a good way to understand, I think, for the Western mind that has been, patriarchicized.
Yes. We love that word. That was good,
Yeah.
Kirti. We're
So
word
like
nerds here.
for that mind, I think it might help to think of the masculine and feminine almost like winter and spring, or fall and summer. Like different phases of being and existing, and in different phases and times of the year, you have different climate and ecosystems that affect your way of being. And so literally we are also composed the same way. And so the Shiva Shakti concept of Tantra is that we are this binary code, or what we think of as polar opposites, only exists to reveal what the divine integration is. That is who we are. And so how we explain it is through the inhale and the exhale, the Ida and the Pingala. And the Sushumna channel is this divine integration. And the Sushumna channel, rather than seeing it as the line of the chakras, a lot of we see that as it's this straight line that runs down. However, there's more evidence and proof aligning us now that the Sushumna channel is actually tapping in to the vagus nerve that runs alongside the spine and moves more like a serpent, and moves according to the vibration of your emotions, the vibration of your vocalization, and the vibration of your internal thought process and way of being, what you're asking, how your thoughts are imprinting your cells. So we need the sun in order to appreciate the moon, and in the moon we need to have the moon to appreciate the sun. So the duality that we're talking about in the binary, it's a necessary existence. It's a necessary existence. And the truth is, the way we were all created and brought onto this planet and earth was from a very traditional binary code that actually we come through. Trip out on this. I might lose some of y'all, but just roll with me here. We come through a very traditional act of birth so that we can spend the rest of our lives rebirthing. And this is the binary code, is actually birth and death, but death is actually rebirth. So there is no end. You're always regenerating and evolving yourself between these polar opposites. And the polar opposites, the kicker in the whole thing, is ultimately you create those polar opposites based on your childhood experiences and your upbringing and your culture. Those polar opposites are defined for you.
Well, also even just in terms of your own sensitivity, because the body registers heat and cold in the same way, but just kind of interprets the signals differently, right?
Exactly. Totally. Totally. And depending on how you condition your body to respond to heat, I can take much hotter shower than he can. Right.
Have soft skin.
So, then that lets you know that, okay, we have these temperatures, hot and cold, but between hot and cold, even how we define what is extreme heat and extreme cold is different for each person. So even within the body, and this is where we work with ancestral work as well, is like, you don't know what you don't know. Some things you come into this lifetime, your soul chooses this physical form in the root chakra. It chooses this to have that experience. You have to have the experience of being a white Greek male so that you could realize who you are not of that experience.
Yep. And with all those, again, that's that idea of honoring the box, where it's like a check mark. It's literally like the shape of your puzzle piece, where this is the hand you've been dealt, and how you gonna play the game. And
it's always a balancing game. And I think that this is where you can speak to the yin yang. It's like, I feel like in our Western, I can only speak to being an American. I feel that the feminine energy is way dampered down, and it's really pressed down into the ground because we've had decades and decades of just evolution in terms of like building and mass production and capitalism and the economy and power and control, that it's always a balancing game. These polls that we're talking about, it's not about one beating the other. It's not about yes vaccine, no vaccine, yes voting, no voting, but really about bringing a balance to that, so that there's choices available for everybody and nobody's feeling pressured.
And part of bringing a balance is to honor a flow, because you can't stop everything and create balance. You kind of got to do it on the job.
Yeah, so how would you describe that with the yin yang of like balance and equilibrium to the energies?
Well,
and the polar opposites, or the binary.
I think you did a good job. Other thing I would say on it is just yin and yang. One thing that I love about yin and yang, and it's called yin and yang theory, because it's not to say that yin and yang actually exist.
Right.
Yin and yang theory is that it's always a comparison. So if I say, that the Hulk is yang, that's compared to what? What are we comparing the Hulk to?
Right.
So I think ultimately where we are being challenged right now, just as computers, which have been functioning off of binary code, they are going to quantum, but they are just mimicking us.
Right.
We are already quantum beings who are playing a binary game. So what I mean is like a easy way to explain quantum, because I saw this video where this guy was like explaining quantum theory to different levels of understanding, from an elementary kid to someone his peer. And I love the elementary way. So the current binary code of understanding of creation is head and tails on a coin. And we have to pick one or the other, 0 or 1. Quantum is the coin being spent, and it's the spin. And it's neither head nor tails, and it is head and tails all at the same time. Yep. That is who we all are. All possibilities.
The children might say God is trans.
Yes.
Oh, fuck yes. And what's interesting is we've had trans clients who, in the work, what they're processing, the pain that they're processing is that they're unable to honor the binary code that they have learned of the fact. So even if they've had a surgery that's changed their genitals, right? And they're still like, God, but there's just still this lack. I'm still feeling this lack, like, of unconditional love. Like, I've done everything that I thought I needed in order to feel complete and whole, but I'm still not feeling that completeness and wholeness. And a lot of times what we see in the energy work is that it's because there's a huge disdain for the sex that they were born into. And so what has to happen is that has to get flipped. You have to go, whenever you want to heal, we want to go to the equal and opposite. Go to the equal and opposite, and it's like, wow, like, what an honor to be born that sex so that I could realize who I truly am today.
Yes. And there's a quote. I'm probably won't even be able to paraphrase it, but the pop star Sophie, who died recently, trans pop star who died trying to see, I think it was the Leo new moon or Leo full moon in Athens. Yeah, Leo full moon in Athens. And they were talking about their transness as this kind of ever approaching actualization of self. Wow. That's a journey that I do believe everybody is on. It's just some people do it through their career and profession. Some people do it through their family. Some people do it through themselves as a creation. And to me, it's why I really wanted to have you both on tonight, was to be able to sit and be with you and share in your love and introduce you to everybody together. But I knew some good stuff was going to come out for individuals too, because you just had such a profound effect on me. And P.S. tonight, as we're sitting here, those flows were not nothing. I had to respond. I had to be moving. And it's a very particular thing that your energy does, which is it moving like 4 times tonight. My eyes crossed just a little bit, just a tiny bit, and it felt great. Could have kept going, but I didn't. So, yeah, I just anybody who's seeing this and who's pained by this, or who really, as you were talking about it too, like, you've helped people deal with pain, with physical pain, right? And with trauma and with all sorts of various different things. So, you know, I always love to use the internet and these digital formats in this Aquarian era in the hopes that somebody finds this video, either somebody tonight, but that somebody might find this video many years from now and get exactly what they need out of it. So I'm sure you will be doing just as many beautiful and profound things then as you are now. Now is what matters. Now is why we're here. So in this moment, let me ask you, this is a little moment we call yumminess. Something that is yummy, something on this earth plane that is giving you life, that is so delicious on this earth plane that it's making you feel divine. Doesn't have to be food, but it could be.
I love him. Or I love they. Are we they? Are we we?
I'm pronoun flexible, he, she, they, all applicable. And I would especially encourage both of you to see which one fits in the moment.
I know. I love them all. I'm like, yeah, it's like Kirti. I am Kirti. I am we. I am they. I am nothing. I love it. I love all of that idea. So, okay, what is yummy? For me right now, the most yummy thing is I am feeling so very, very purposeful in nature. And it has just like, it's the sexiest thing I've done and I've been doing, and I feel like it's just only expanding like our sex and our amazingness. So for me, like, nature has just been so yummy. I lead a movement class every week in the trees, and man, it doesn't matter who shows up, how many show up, it's just always gorgeous and delicious, and I feel satisfied and satiated. And the whole week, my appetite builds for that meal. So I'd say for me, that would be my yummy point.
And a planned meal is, I was reading it somewhere the other day about the delights of planned sex, to plan it like a meal that you're coming to, and you, what are you going to start with? And what's for dessert? And how are we going to do? Are we having like spicy food tonight, or is it more whipped cream, fluffy, sweet?
Yes, I love it.
How about you, Sho? What's yumminess? What's delicious, making you feel divine?
Oh man, you know, it's just sometimes what happens with me is like, you know, it may be after love making, or it may be going out into nature is another one, or, you know, writing poetry, but the inner knowing and just being, I just enjoy the knowingness of sometimes there's just times I wish like I could get on the phone call and like spread that shit, like, oh man, like this feeling that I'm feeling right now, I wish I could just share it with more and more people, you know, and I know that's, you know, but
you do.
It's happening more. Well, I appreciate that. It's happening more and more, and I'm just enjoying that a lot.
Very profound, and I'm going to piggyback on it. I love that none of us we're all talking things that are delicious and satiating, but none of us are talking actual snacks. And I'm going to continue in this vein, where what I'm honoring this week is really the concept of structural integrity. Because what I learned is that I went for so long using my sympathetic nervous system, projected too far out of my body, fighting, flighting, all sorts of various things, whatever. Been trying to come home for a long ass time, been doing a good job of it. But what's revealed itself, I had a back injury a couple weeks ago, and what's come up since then is just structural integrity, the miracle of the spinal column, of one thing stacked upon the next. And as you're saying this, that you want to share this light, you know, I'm someone who makes a practice of sharing as much light and awareness and illumination and love and satisfaction and nurturance as possible. But if you don't have structural integrity, it's not going to last very long. And so I'm blessed to have been made an ox in this life that can exist in like highly unacceptable patterns of body-mind relationship for way longer than is necessary. But I'm coming home in this way. And so I've got all of this heavy duty grunt work in front of me, including, as I was saying to you guys, I know you guys left Instagram back in December. Big support. We are all about conscious social media consumption participation. And it was very inspiring to see you guys be like, oh, you're going to fuck with us? Please. You said it much more diplomatically than that, though. There's a beautiful video on the Faux Show page if anybody is Instagram watching it. But it was inspiring. And that's what I mean is great example of structural integrity is to take one brick out at a time and look at it and put it back into place. And I'm really sitting here now going, wow, in order to be who I am and express as I do and share the light that I have, like I need to kick the tires and look at the foundation and look at the bedrock and really consider, is each of these bricks supporting the structure? Is it making the spine, you know, sturdy and fluid? Or am I like literally like pasting walls onto things in order to hold my shit together? You know, we're in the new paradigm now. That was the old paradigm. She's gone. So really just honoring structural integrity. And I really do. I feel like my spine got a healing just from sitting in this digital space with you today.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it.
Thank you, beauties. Thank you, angels. Thank you so much for participating in this, the Edible Spirit Hour. Yeah, everybody. So how can people find you? Should they just go to the website, or how if somebody's seeing this and wants to work with you? Yeah, website?
Yep, websites are the best. Our email address is on there.
Great.
And then they can just reach out to there and we'll get to them.
FoshowEnergyWork, right? .com.
Yeah.
Great. Beautiful. And wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us. We love you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to everybody who watched tonight. And we will surely see you. We'll be back live next week at 8 p.m. Eastern for another episode of the Edible Spirit Hour. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. You are so delicious. The Edible Spirit Hour.
I love that.
Nice.